My brother thought I was his personal, on-demand financial safety net. So I finally cut him off. He retaliated by calling our boss, claiming I was erratic and a liability to the company. Minutes later, I was forced to show incriminating emails to human resources, and I sprang a trap he never anticipated. This is where the real story starts, and you will not believe how it ends. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the conclusion. And we love to know, where are you watching from today? Tell us in the comments below. The pressure headache had been building for an hour, a tight band of stress squeezing behind my eyes. I stared at the quarterly portfolio analysis on my screen, the numbers blurring together. The deadline was 5 p.m. A hard stop before the market opened in Asia. And my biggest client, a notoriously demanding tech mogul, was expecting a flawless report. At 32, I had clawed my way to a senior analyst position at Sterling Coal Investments. It was a brutal, high-stakes career that demanded absolute precision and unwavering focus. All from a glass-walled office I'd sacrificed my 20s to earn. My focus was shattered by the buzz of my phone on the desk. A text message. I didn't even need to look at the name. It was the sound of my life being derailed. The sound of my younger brother. Mark. I glanced at the clock. 10:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. The text was predictable. Asterisk. Ali. Huge opportunity. Need 5K by noon. This is the one. I swear. We'll pay you back double. My heart did its usual painful lurch. A mix of old, worn-out love and the hot, sinking dread of his chaos. A familiar script was about to play out. If I said yes, the $5,000 would vanish into a black hole. Another failed crypto scheme, or a can't-miss stock tip from a guy he knew. If I said no, my phone would erupt in a torrent of guilt, accusations, and rage. He would leave voicemails, send rapid-fire texts, and try to poison our parents against me. But today was different. Today, the deadline was non-negotiable. Today, the $10,000 I'd given him 6 months ago for a business license, money he'd used for a Vegas trip, was still a raw wound. Today, I had finally had enough. I typed a single sentence. My thumb steady. Asterisk. No. Mark. I can't. Do not ask me again. Asterisk. I hit send and put my phone on silent. A moment later, it started vibrating violently against the wood of my desk. A furious, buzzing insect. I ignored it. I watched as the texts lit up the screen. Asterisk. Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you times. Followed by, you're so selfish. Sitting in your ivory tower. Asterisk. And finally, the one he always used. Asterisk. You'll regret this. Allison. I promise you. Asterisk. But this time, his threat had a new, sharper edge. This time, he wasn't just trying to hurt my feelings. He was trying to destroy my life. I stood by my desk for a full 5 minutes after the phone finally went dark. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clench them into fists. The silence in my office felt unnaturally loud, amplified by the phantom echo of Mark's entitled rage. The adrenaline from the confrontation had momentarily dulled my headache, but now it all came flooding back, a toxic cocktail of guilt, anger, and physical exhaustion. My first impulse, the one conditioned by 30 years of being the responsible older sister, was to text him back, to smooth it over, to say, okay, just this once. I'll manage. That was the role I had always played. I was Allison, the reliable one, the boring, stable sister who existed to clean up the messes made by Mark, the charming one. Our parents had cemented this dynamic from the beginning. Mark had charisma. I had a work ethic. Mark had dreams. I had a savings account. But as I sank into my leather office chair, the sheer, blinding injustice of it all hardened into a cold resolve. I remembered with perfect clarity what had happened just last year. Mark had begged me to co-sign a lease on a high-end apartment he couldn't afford, swearing he had a huge commission check coming. I'd reluctantly agreed. 3 months later, I got a call from a collection agency. He had skipped out on the lease, leaving me on the hook for over $12,000 in unpaid rent and fees. When I confronted him, he'd laughed it off. "Allie, relax. It's just money. You have plenty of it." He never paid me back a single penny. He still owed me for the car repairs, the credit card debt I'd cleared, the endless stream of just $100 to get me through the week. The guilt began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard anger. I wasn't just angry for myself or my drained savings account. I was angry at the casual, destructive way he moved through the world, leaving a wake of chaos for others to clean up. I looked at the locked folder on my computer desktop, the one labeled simply, documentation. I'd started it after the apartment fiasco. It felt extreme at the time, paranoid even, but I had saved every wheedling text, every email full of false promises, every venomous message he'd sent when I'd refused him. I told myself it was for my own sanity, to remind myself that I wasn't the selfish one. But I knew, deep down, I was building an arsenal. I was curating his consequences. I opened the folder and created a new file, saving screenshots of the morning's text exchange. Mark, in his blinding entitlement, always forgot one crucial thing. I keep meticulous records. It's my job. My relationship with Mark was a decades-long case study in one-sided sacrifice. I was the elder by 4 years. And from the moment he was born, I was designated his keeper. I was the old soul, the responsible one. Mark was the wild child, the free spirit. Our parents reveled in this narrative. They were retired now, living comfortably in Florida. But their entire parenting philosophy had been one of lazy typecasting. I was praised for my straight A's and my quiet, predictable behavior. Mark was praised for, well, for being Mark. When I buckled down in college, taking on student loans to get a finance degree, Mark had drifted, dropping out to find himself. This journey of self-discovery involved a string of failed ventures, a mountain of debt, and a constant, draining siphon on our parents' retirement fund, and, by extension, my income. I was the one who drove 4 hours to bail him out of jail after a bar fight. I was the one who paid his rent when he got fired from another job for showing up late. I was the one who had to explain to our parents why their golden boy's credit score was in the toilet. My love for him, or what was left of it, had become a weapon they all used against me. Because I had a successful career, they had collectively decided that my money was not my own. "You're doing so well," was the constant refrain. "It's not like you have a family to support. Allison, you can afford to help your brother." They conveniently ignored the fact that my career was the result of 70-hour work weeks, of sacrificing holidays and weekends, of a relentless drive they had always called being too serious. Mark, now 28, had no discernible job. He called himself a day trader and an entrepreneur, which in reality meant he gambled on risky stocks with money he didn't have and pitched half-baked ideas to anyone who would listen. He presented his life as a high-stakes, glamorous hustle. I knew it was a carefully constructed lie funded by our parents and my misplaced sense of duty. The antagonist in my life wasn't just Mark. It was the entire system my family had built. My parents were the architects of his dysfunction. Just last month, I'd tried to set a boundary. I'd called them and explained that I could no longer fund Mark's lifestyle. "Allison, don't be so harsh." My mother had sighed, her voice dripping with disappointment. "He's just trying to find his footing. It's a tough world out there. He's 28 years old." I'd countered, my voice tight. "I have my own future to save for. I can't be his personal bank." "It's family, Allison," my father had chimed in, using his final word tone. "Family helps each other. Your brother needs you. When you have a little less, maybe you'll understand what real struggle is." The implication was clear. My success was a flaw, and my financial security was a resource to be plundered. My sacrifices weren't seen as sacrifices. They were seen as my obligation. Mark himself was the most polished manipulator of all. He could weep on command, spinning tales of woe about near-missed opportunities and cruel twists of fate. He was a black hole of need, and I had been his primary source of fuel for my entire life. Today, I had finally cut the fuel line, and as I sat in my silent office, the quiet felt less like a void and more like a shield. I knew the fight wasn't over. This was just the opening salvo. The reprieve lasted for exactly 1 hour. It was just long enough for me to finish the first draft of the portfolio analysis and start second-guessing myself. Was I being too hard on him? Was I the cold, selfish monster he and my parents thought I was? The headache was a dull, pounding drum, and the sterile quiet of the office seemed to magnify it. Then my desk phone rang. The sharp, professional chime that always signaled my boss. Mr. Davenport. Allison. Could you come to my office? Please. His voice was flat, devoid of its usual warmth. My stomach clenched. I saved my work, smoothed down my blazer, and walked the short distance to his corner office, my heart hammering against my ribs. He was sitting behind his massive mahogany desk, his face unreadable. Close the door, he said. I did, and the quiet click of the latch sounded like a gunshot. Have a seat. I sat, my back ramrod straight. Allison, he began, steepling his fingers. I just received a troubling phone call from your brother, Mark. The air left my lungs. I'm sorry. He called my direct line. Said he was your brother and that he was deeply concerned for your well-being. My blood ran cold. He claimed you've been acting erratically, that you're unstable. He said he was worried you were making reckless decisions with client assets. The lie was so audacious, so diabolical, that it took my breath away. He wasn't just trying to get revenge. He was trying to get me fired. He was attacking the one thing that mattered most, my professional credibility. Sir, that is an absolute and disgusting lie, I said, my voice shaking, despite my best efforts to keep it steady. My brother and I had a personal disagreement this morning. He asked me for money, and for the first time, I told him no. This is his retaliation. Davenport held up a hand. I believe you, Allison. Your work here has been nothing short of exemplary. But you have to understand my position. An allegation like this, involving client assets, it's a serious matter. The company policy. I have to report this conversation to Human Resources. We need to have a meeting. Now. The walk to the HR department on the 12th floor was the longest walk of my life. I could feel the eyes of my colleagues on my back. Whispers followed me down the hall. My sterling reputation, built over years of hard work, was being tarnished in a matter of minutes by a lie born of petty revenge. The head of HR, a sharp woman named Carol, listened with a grim expression as Davenport recounted Mark's call. She then turned to me, her eyes clinical and assessing. Allison, we need to take this seriously. Your brother claimed he has evidence that you're in a distressed mental state. He mentioned erratic emails and voicemails. He's twisting things, I said, my voice gaining strength from the sheer injustice of it all. He is the one who sends harassing messages when he doesn't get what he wants. We'll need to investigate, Carol said, her tone leaving no room for argument. For the protection of the firm and its clients, we may need to place you on administrative leave until this is sorted out. Administrative leave. It was a death sentence. The end of my career at Sterling Cole. My mind was racing. Mark was desperate. This level of escalation, risking his own relationship with me forever. It wasn't about just $5,000. There was something else. Something bigger. And in a sickening flash of insight, I knew what it was. Last week, Mark had emailed me about a co-investment opportunity, asking me to review a prospectus. It looked shady, and I told him to stay away from it. But in the email chain, he'd accidentally forwarded a conversation with the investment manager. The manager had written, *Mark. The $50,000 is due on Friday. We have your sister's letter of credit on file. So if you default, we will be collecting from her directly. At the time, I assumed it was just more of his blustering lies. A letter of credit, I'd never signed such a thing. But now I understood. He had forged my signature. He had used my name, my reputation, to secure a $50,000 loan. Friday was 2 days away. He wasn't trying to get $5,000 from me. He was trying to discredit me, to paint me as unstable. Times the fraud came to light. He was hoping that when the firm he scammed came after me, My own company would assume I was a crazy, unreliable person who had signed the document and forgotten. He was trying to ruin my reputation to cover up his crime. My fear, however, was immediately consumed by a white-hot, clarifying rage. This was not a confrontation. This was war, and he had just handed me the ammunition to win it. "Carol," I said, my voice suddenly calm and clear. "You won't need to place me on leave, and you won't need to investigate my mental state. My brother is not concerned. He is terrified, and I can show you exactly why." I opened my laptop on the conference table. Carol and Mr. Davenport leaned in, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. This was the moment. The showdown. It wasn't going to be the loud, dramatic mess Mark had envisioned. It was going to be quiet, calm, and systematic. "First," I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard, "this is the text exchange from this morning." I brought up the screenshots. Here is my brother demanding $5,000. And here is my polite, firm refusal. And here is his response. Threatening me. Davenport's jaw tightened. Carol's eyes narrowed. "This establishes his motive for calling you Mr. Davenport," I continued, my voice level. "He was angry, but he's also desperate. And this is the reason." I navigated to the email folder I'd saved. "Last week, he asked for my advice on an investment. He accidentally included this email from the fund manager." I highlighted the damning sentence. Asterisk. "The $50,000 is due on Friday. We have your sister's letter of credit on file." Asterisk. "I have never signed a letter of credit for my brother," I stated, looking directly at them. "I have never even heard of this fund. He has forged my signature. He has committed fraud using my name and, by extension, the reputation of this firm. He didn't call you because he thinks I'm unstable. He called you to preemptively discredit me before his crime is exposed on Friday when he inevitably defaults." I let the words hang in the air. The silence in the room was absolute. Carol and Davenport stared at the screen, their faces draining of color. The entire situation had flipped on its axis. In the space of 60 seconds, I had gone from the subject of an HR investigation to the victim of a serious financial crime. Davenport was the first to speak, his voice a low growl. "He used your name for $50,000. "Yes," I said. "He was counting on our family connection and hoping you would believe I was simply erratic." Carol picked up her phone. "I'm calling legal," she said, her voice hard as steel. "And security? We need to get ahead of this immediately." Davenport looked at me, his eyes filled with a new respect. "Allison, I am so sorry you were put through this. The firm will stand behind you 100%. We will provide any and all legal resources you need. We will pursue this to the fullest extent of the law." Just then, my personal cell phone, which I'd placed on the table, lit up. It was a call from my mother. I silenced it without a second thought. The family I was trying to protect was the one sitting right here in this room, the career I had built, the reputation I had earned. The other one, the one built on lies and enabling, was no longer my problem. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Sterling Cole's legal team, a pack of corporate sharks, descended on the fraudulent fund Mark had dealt with. Faced with a lawsuit from a Wall Street giant, the fund manager immediately cooperated, handing over the forged letter of credit. The digital signature was easily traced back to Mark's IP address. It was an open and shut case of wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. 2 days later, on the Friday, he was supposed to pay back the loan. 2 detectives showed up at his apartment and arrested him. Of course, my parents called me, hysterical. "How could you let this happen?" "Allison," my mother wailed into the phone. "You could have just given him the money. Now you've sent your own brother to jail. He sent himself to jail." "Mom," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "He committed a crime. He tried to destroy my career to cover it up. I am done. It's family." "Allison," my father shouted from another line. "Family doesn't do this to each other." "You're right," I said quietly. "They don't. Goodbye." I hung up and blocked both of their numbers. 6 months later, I stood in what used to be Mr. Action Davenport's office. He had been promoted to a regional director position, and I had been promoted to his old job, vice president of portfolio management. Mark had pleaded guilty and was serving a minimum sentence of 18 months in a federal prison. I attended the sentencing. He never once looked at me. My parents sent me a single, handwritten letter, full of accusations and guilt. I threw it away without finishing it. The silence in my life was profound. It was no longer jarring or empty. It was a vast, open, beautiful, quiet. It was the sound of peace. It was the sound of being done. My headaches were gone. I was sleeping through the night. I was thriving. I had chosen my future over my past. And I had never felt more free. If you are watching this, and have ever been made to feel that your success is a resource for others to plunder, that your boundaries are a form of cruelty, remember this. The responsibility my family saw as my burden became the very discipline that allowed me to document the truth. Your strength is not an obligation to carry those who refuse to walk on their own. My name is Allison, and I'm the sister my brother tried to ruin. Today, his crime is a closed file, and my future is an open door. That is my resolution. That is my peace. If this story resonated with you, like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Comment below with your own story of finally choosing yourself